Stories is different.
Yes.
And as you know, anybody successful has put in time and
Without a
work.
doubt.
And there are a lot of people where the stars align and things happen. And,
Yes.
and so for each one of those people, I couldn't tell you. However, I would say this. Every man is made in the image of God, and every man has that capacity for way more than we can ask or imagine. And certain people just happen to be able to tap into the greatness that God has put in them, and the ability, and they match up their gifts, their calling, their talent, and their drive, and they just won't take no for an answer.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying?
And they usually have something they're trying to serve more than themselves.
Yeah.
You know, even if it's an athlete, he's trying to serve something large and build something more than himself. And it feels like to me, I don't know what your experience is, if it's the same, it's like God moves to those that are trying to serve more than just themselves. Like, we're just trying to serve ourselves. We get a certain amount of insight, I think, because life supports life. We're all part of life. If you're trying to support your family, you get a different level of insight. You're trying to support a giant community like you do, you get a different level of insight. You're trying to do something for the world. Whether anybody knows it or not, you know it's right, and you get a different level of insight. So it's like, where have your insights come from most? Where have you gotten the insights that have allowed you to navigate through all these challenges to a place where you're able to serve so many?
When I was leading up to the age of 24, I was living for me. Football was my God. Getting high was my God. And then when these guys shared the gospel with me, that Jesus died for my sin and rose from the dead, and not that I was going to join a religion, but that I was going to have a relationship with God. Because God made us in his image so we can have a relationship. And in the context of that relationship, with the Spirit of God living in me, that God can actually express himself through me was so much different than religion, where I got to go check the box.
Right.
And the boxes I check are better than the boxes that you check.
Yeah.
And God says, no, I'm not about checking a box, I'm about a relationship. So at the age of 24, when I gave my life to Jesus Christ, I stopped doing cocaine, and one day, April 12th, 1984, stopped smoking weed that day. My girlfriend and I got back together that day.
She's your wife today.
She's my wife today.
How many years later now?
34 years.
Good you know the number, because she's watching. She's watching right
34, 34 years, September 11th. And we met 38 years ago. We met in 1980.
Wow.
But what happened was I said to God, I can't do this for me anymore. I have to do it for you.
Yeah.
And so when the Spirit of God started speaking to me, and then when this book came out, even for years, whenever there was an incident in the country that was very racial, like when OJ was acquitted, and all the white people were mad, and all the black people were sad. I mean, happy. And I saw that. It just broke my heart, the division. Yeah. I remember that weekend I spoke at the church I was at, and I cried after it was over, because it was just so heartbreaking to see how divided we were.
But that's really culture, right? It's not humanity. It's what we've been. You don't grow up being you don't come into the world being a racist, right? You learn.
You learn from the pain of your family. Remember, social narrative. Everybody watching here, you sat around your table, and you listened to your parents, your grandparents tell their story. Yes. You listened to your friends tell their story, and you took it as fact. Now, my family had stories that was fact. It just wasn't the whole story, but it was fact. Yeah. And so that's all you know. Yeah. And so, we grew up hearing the same perpetuated stories of our families and the pain perspective of our families.
And when you're in our in-group, the people that are like you, you give people a different set of characteristics and qualities. And when they're outside the group, it's magnified. The pain is magnified. There might be problems within the in-group even, but people look at it differently. It's like even couples. You wrote about this actually, if I remember correctly. In a relationship, you see people, and the ones that get divorced are the ones always that say, "I gave my all. I gave them everything." They give so much value to what they gave, and they don't see the value that was given back to them, right? And that's why they end up divorced. Well, we're kind of like experiencing that at a cultural level right now, because we're forgetting the gifts that we are giving each other, or at least capable of giving each other.
And that example is that the marriage was a contract, not a covenant. So if I make a covenant with you, I am committing to you, period.
See, I'm loving you no matter what.
I'm marrying you no matter what. If I make a contract, you do this, I'll do this.
Yeah, that's right. It's a deal.
It's a deal. It's a deal. That's right. It's a deal. It's a deal. You negotiate, right? And so most marriages are contracts. They're not covenants. And so we have
great distinction.
We don't have covenants with people. I need to make a covenant with you. I'm gonna love you, even if you curse my name. I'm gonna love you. That's what really love is, right?
How do you get people to the point where they make the distinction of that? Because like a relationship that's transactional doesn't feel very good to anybody, right? On either side. When a relationship is based purely on love and it's unconditional love, it's one of the greatest experiences in life. I'm privileged to have that. I know you are as well. Right. How do you get people to a point of covenant in their mindset as opposed to contract?
For me, I had to get my mindset off me And when God got into my life and God said, I made a covenant with you. Because you have nothing to offer me. I mean, it's not like I went to God and said, God, look, let's make a deal. And he's like, no.
You were saying today in the service, he was saying today, there's nothing God, one thing God can't do. He's not going to learn from you.
He's not learning anything. He's not learning anything. So God said, my son died. He already did it. We paid the whole price. You didn't do anything.
Yeah.
So I just want you to receive my love. And I was like, okay, God. And so once I realized how much God loved me unconditionally, because I didn't deserve it, don't deserve it, he said, now I want you to do that. And so if I can learn how to unconditionally love other people, and by the way, the more I love people who don't love me, the more I'm like Jesus.
Yeah.
And so that's the in the purest sense, I have to learn unconditional love. And whoever's watching, you can't love and treat people right because they do it to you. That's a contract.
Yeah.
You have to decide, I am going to be the beginning and the end of the grace in this conversation, no matter what happens, because grace is undeserved. Once you have to deserve it, it's not grace anymore.
Yeah.
It's not really love anymore.
Tell me, it's easy to talk about these things, philosophically, but one of the reasons I respect you, Miles, is you live this stuff. You walk your talk. And I know there was an experience here in San Diego where there was an immigrant man who's from Africa, if I remember correctly, I think Uganda, and he was shot by the police. And so now you're dealing with an issue where the culture says, pick a side, and you were brought in as amongst a group of people. I know that was a hard situation, but what I loved was tell people the situation and tell them about the 5 chairs and how you dealt with it, because brother, that was exquisite.
So it happened on a Tuesday. It was a Monday or Tuesday because we had our pastors meeting on Wednesday. It happened on a Monday, Tuesday, and the video came out of the police officer shooting this African immigrant here in town.
Which, by the way, you'd think the video would clear it up, but whatever people believe, if they see it in the video still, don't they, on all sides?
Everyone saw it the way they wanted to see it. And so I went to the police station that night, and when the video came out, and we talked to the chief about going outside to talk to the protesters. So I went outside to talk to the protesters. He went outside, and we went with him. I was standing next to him, and while he's reading his statement, there were about 100 protesters, and it was at night, so you really couldn't see a lot of people because there were a lot of lights, and someone cursed me. No, they said
first the church.
The church. They blankety blank the church.
Rock Church.
And I was like, my head just jerked up. Like, wow, we didn't. How did we get in this?
Yeah.
And then they said blankety blank, Pastor Miles.
Yeah.
And it really bothered me. And then, so that was on Tuesday. I went to staff meeting the next day, and in our staff we have Black, white, Hispanic, Asian, Middle Eastern, all these different ethnicities in our pastoral staff.
Yes.
There's 30 pastors in the room. So we got in a discussion. I said, look, we got to talk about this because